The phrase muscle car seems to be synonymous with the late 1960s and early 70s in American car culture. Featuring the likes of the famed Chevelle and Dodge Charger, the era was laced with high horsepower and high performance. However, this golden era was destroyed for all intents and purposes by the perfect storm of high insurance costs, emissions controls, and it was capped off by the oil crisis that successfully turned V8 engines over 400 cubic inches into sewing machines that made less than 200 horsepower. This low power spree continued to kill the muscle car through the 70s and into the 80s, until new technology was able to combine emissions efficiency with horsepower in the 90s to bring about a chance to resurrect the muscle car of old in new, sleeker body styles with engines like the LS1, which made its debut in the 1990s along with the 4th gen Camaro and Firebird. But of all the 4th gens that exist, there are arguably none more exciting than the limited production Pontiac SLP Firehawks, which took the Firebird to a whole new level of performance. Behind the creation of the SLP Firehawk was Ed Hamburger, who was a former drag racer turned performance parts industry genius, and he knew how to build fast cars. After a few automotive entrepreneurial endeavors, Ed set his sights on building the ultimate performance cars, which would start with the 3rd generation SLP Firehawk, which we already did a full video on that will be linked here on the screen. Anyway, the initial iteration of the SLP Firehawk, although it was awesome, it was also prohibitively expensive. The SLP Firehawk itself first launched in 1991 as part of the sunsetting end of the 3rd gen F-body design, and a mere 25 of these cars were built, with a 6-speed manual transmission along with their specially built L98 350 small block, which had ported heads and a host of other internal upgrades that altogether let it put out over 360 horsepower. These cars also got a full suspension overhaul, and they were actually real Corvette killers for all intents and purposes. They were also $40,000 to $50,000, which caused their poor sales numbers. But there was a saving grace. In 1993, General Motors released the all-new 4th generation of the F-body, going away from that 80s triangle IROC style for a much sleeker and aerodynamic body that looked wildly different except for its continuation of the hideaway headlights from the 3rd gens. This new platform gave SLP a new opportunity to make a more affordable version of their SLP Firehawk and to capitalize on the hype of a brand new generation of car. The SLP Firehawk package, which was initially based on the 4th gen Firebird formula, included its own Firehawk graphics with its own stainless steel custom exhaust tips and 17-inch American racing wheels to tie together the Firehawk's aggressive looks and set it apart from the regular Firebird formula as the newest and hottest 90s rebirth of the muscle car and pony car. The initial release of the 1993 SLP Firehawk came with the LT1 V8 that put out 300 horsepower and 330 foot-pounds of torque. Now, the LT1 is essentially the last of the Gen 1 small block Chevy 350 designed engines, and it kind of acted as a technology bridge to the LS engine, which launched later in the C5 Corvette in 1997. This LT1 came with aluminum heads and a hydraulic roller camshaft, as well as a multi-port fuel injection system that was unique to just the Firebird, Camaro, and Corvette. To let this new LT1 breathe better, the Firehawk specifically was also given a 3-inch exhaust with a much less restrictive muffler that helped add 15 horsepower, for a grand total of 315 horsepower and 330 foot-pounds of torque, as well as giving the Firehawks a much more aggressive exhaust tone. Note that this performance exhaust, though,
was still a 2-into-1 design with a Y pipe that merged after the manifolds, because all the stock 4th gens had an exhaust setup like this. they did not have true duals because of the way the rear suspension was set up. And then when the 4th gen received its facelift in 1998, it received the all-new LS1 5.7-liter V8, which made 327 horsepower and 345 foot-pounds of torque in the Firehawk, thanks to the same core modifications being an improved intake system and a freer-flowing exhaust, now just carried over to the LS platform. The LS1 was a major improvement over the LT1 engine in pretty much every way as we know it now. But then, dare I say it, the new LS platform wasn't really that huge of a deal, considering it made similar power for the Camaro and Firebird as the prior LT1 did. But oh boy, did it quickly become evident just how great this LS platform was. Behind the two power plants sat a 6-speed manual transmission, whether you got the LT1 or the LS1, with a Hurst shifter, which allowed the Firehawk to be somewhat of a Corvette killer, capable of a 0 to 60 time of 5.3 seconds and a 13.9 quarter-mile time at a speed of 103.6 miles an hour. This made the SLP Firehawk faster than an automatic C5 Corvette. Now, I know technically we are cherry-picking from the slowest Corvettes here, but again, of that generation, the Vette also was supposed to have 350 horsepower coming from its LS1 compared to the Firehawk's 327. What sat under the Firehawk, though, was arguably the best part. The SLP Firehawk was given a race-tuned suspension with an aftermarket Bilstein performance package to give the car a much better overall handling setup than a stock 4th gen and even a 4th gen Trans Am or 4th gen Firebird formula. The Firehawk came complete with a limited slip differential, 4-wheel disc brakes, and a quick ratio steering box, which made it feel like it could hang on with some of the better European cars that carried a significantly higher price tag at the time. Now, where the Firehawk differed from its European counterparts was the interior. Now, it came with a very standard leather interior that was pretty much almost identical to the regular Firebird, with 2 bucket seats up front that were divided by a very bland-looking center console and a Hurst shifter, which was the centerpiece of a very early 90s to early 2000s GM plastic-esque interior. The quality here was nothing special and honestly was pretty lacking, but it did at least feature a 150-mile-per-hour speedometer next to a tach that ran all the way up to 7,000 RPM. Throughout its near 11-year production run that started in 1991 with the 3rd gen, the Firehawk proved to be a very popular boutique pony car meant for people who wanted a true performance car that wasn't just your everyday Camaro, Corvette, or Mustang. Pontiac buyers have always been a little bit different, and in the case of the Firehawk specifically, they were very different. The basic SLP Firehawk package would add up to $4,595 to the base price of a properly equipped Firebird formula, for a grand total of between $27,000 and $29,000. And that was to start in 1993. As the years went on, the prices increased. In all, less than 5,000 SLP Firehawks were made by the time the Firebird said its final goodbyes to the world in 2002. Of those cars, about 1,400 of them were built from 1993 to 1997 with the LT1 engine, as well as an alleged 20 or so extra cars for 1997 that were also equipped with the LT4. But information on those is sparse. And from 1999 to 2002, SLP built another 3,000 or so SLP Firehawks with the LS1 under the hood. No Firehawks were built for 1998, and it's pretty evident here that the LS1 Firehawks greatly outsold the LT1 cars. So if you're ever looking for one, or if you're just out there looking for a little 90s muscle and happen to come across one, I'd definitely check it out because these cars are pretty awesome and they are pretty rare. And if you are cruising around in your C5 Corvette, particularly an automatic convertible version, and you happen to see one of these cars, I'd be careful because that Firehawk may be able to beat you. Thank you all for watching another episode of our Rare Cars documentary series. If you enjoyed this video, we would greatly appreciate it if you could drop a like and also share this video with other enthusiasts. Also, please make sure that you're subscribed to the Rare Cars YouTube channel and smash that